Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to Brand versus Performance. For those of you that are new here, welcome. If it's your first time with Marketing and Maritime and you don't know who we are already, we are a industry that has been built by the maritime industry for the maritime industry. It's a community that we believe all marketers should be a part of, because it's not only somewhere that you can come and chew the fat about the things that other people, not naming names, don't always understand in your businesses, but it's somewhere that you can connect with others and hopefully feel inspired. It is a safe space. We are recording this session, so feel free to make sure that you are fully in the moment and don't worry about taking too many notes, because those will be handled for you. We have a brilliant panel today, and I will be letting them do all of the talking when we get to it. But before I do that, it's always nice to set the tone, remind ourselves why we're here, find out a little bit more about kind of the background of the session. So I'm just going to talk you through a few points if the slides want to work. It's very hot, so if you're in the UK, you'll know that we're in the middle of a heat wave, and I think in those times nothing likes to work, but we won't talk about that too much because someone might be watching this on a cold wintry day in December and they might be very jealous. So a few stats there, and as I kind of talk them through, it'd be great if you could think about, where do you stand on this? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree? Does it resonate? Is it something that perhaps within your organisation different members of the teams have different opinions on? So digital marketing and kind of the marketing in the B2B world is growing. It's being invested in more. We are becoming a chronically online industry everywhere. That's not just maritime. And statistics are showing that the investment in them is growing, and it has been growing phenomenally over the last 6 to 8 years. And what we know about that is that, the investment is there, but also the scrutiny is there. The world is a little bit tipsy-turvy right now, and for those of us that are in tune with everything that's going on, especially in the maritime space, that has a knock-on effect, and the knock-on effect is people are really looking at budget and where the money's being spent and what the return is. So yes, there is the positive news that we are being invested in, but on the other side of that, we need to understand how we justify that and where we spend that money. Buyers are becoming more and more aware of what is around them. The digital world is meaning that buyers are coming to the sales teams already equipped with a heck of a lot of knowledge about things. They have already got the intent. They've done a lot of their research, and that research is coming through digital channels. AI is only going to accelerate that. People are able to take a deep dive into your channels and find out what you are and who you're about before they even get a chance to talk to those people. And finally, a little bit about the brand versus performance, which is what we're going to be talking about. There is no one size fits all. And hopefully our panel will all have some quite strong opinions on that, and we'll get into that stuff. But in terms of where you should be spending the money, should it be the brand, the performance? Well, it depends on your maturity. It depends on your goals. It depends on what you're trying to achieve day to day. And that's complex. There is no simple way to do it. But I think there's something that we could probably all relate to, which is at some point or another, the pipeline is being scrutinized. We want to know kind of where's the value, where's the money? We need to make some revenue. Marketing, where are the leads? Where are the low-hanging fruit? Low-hanging fruit and quick wins are not a bad thing. We don't grow this beautiful produce to just leave it there to rot. We want to pick the low-hanging fruit. However, if we're not watering the tree and it shrivels up, then we're going to be in trouble in the mid to long term. So that's a little taster of where we're going to start. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and hopefully you'll see our lovely panelists all here. So hello, welcome to you all. Thank you for all being here. You'll all be able to unmute yourselves, and we will start by getting into a little bit of who's who and where do you stand on this debate and what are your thoughts before, so that we can set the tone. So Nick, please take us away.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I wear a few different hats. So I'm on the advisory board for MiM, but day to day I am the strategy director at Thetis, which is a specialist maritime technology research firm, and I also sit on the board of Digital Ship Media, which is a multimedia platform for the maritime technology sector, and ultimately the business model for Digital Ship Media is that we sell marketing services. So this is an area I've spent a lot of time trying to learn. Whether I know a lot about it or not is another question, and I guess you can be the judge of that. My thoughts on brand versus performance. I'm probably going to alienate the entire marketing community when I say this, But my strong held belief is that marketing is a support function, and it is a support function to sales. And ultimately, we all should be thinking about sales as the ultimate outcome of marketing, and ideally profitable sales at that. And so that's the kind of first lens that I look at when kind of bringing up this question of brand versus performance. So I don't necessarily see them as one thing or the other. I see them as much more of a hierarchy. At the very top of that hierarchy is sales. That is the ultimate performance metric we should be looking at. Underneath that, we end up with all the kind of supporting metrics that might go into sales. So things like pipeline, things like customer acquisition costs, things like customer lifetime value. There's a whole load of different things you can look at there at a high level, and then you can get all the way down into lead generation, into CPC, into CPMs, and all of the kind of minutiae detail. Without performance, you've got no sales. Without sales, you've got no business. So there's no point having a brand if you're in that position. So I think the bottom of the hierarchy actually comes brand. I think it's really important. I love brand. I think about brand a lot. And I think brand is often actually outside the control of the marketer, because I think it touches every point in the organization. But it is a lot about how you make people feel. And I think people buy based on emotion. And so it's really, really important that those emotions are positive, or that you're creating desire, or whatever it may be, that moves people closer to sales. But I do not think we should put brand ahead of performance, and absolutely not ahead of sales at any point. So brand comes bottom for me.
In fact, thank you, Nick. Strong start. I'm sure there'll be lots of thoughts and debate on that, but great. Thank you very much. Adel?
Thank you all. Thank you, Kaylee. And thank you, Nick, for your insightful views. My name is Adel Raslan. I am the brand and marketing manager for LinkedIn Marketing Academy. If you don't know what that is, it is the learning platform, the academy for LinkedIn, helping marketers, non-marketers, and kind of small and medium businesses learn how to use LinkedIn and how to be better B2B marketers, and encouraging you all to kind of use LinkedIn more confidently and create campaigns. Not very self-serving at all, but hopefully benefits you and benefits us at the same time. I'm not in the maritime industry at all, so I'm pleased to be here and share some generalist thoughts. I strongly believe that brand is more important than performance. If you've seen this 95-5 ratio stat that's been thrown around, LinkedIn's own data as well, only 5% of buyers are ever in a position to buy from you, especially in B2B, especially in maritime, where things are complex, it's regulated, things cost a lot of money. No one's gonna, very rarely gonna buy off of you, off of a Google ad, whether you're looking for a cruise ship to go on for your holiday, or shipping ports or wherever. So you need your brand to be on all the time. And I think this is also prevalent because somewhere between like 11 to 13 internal stakeholders are now involved in B2B purchases. So you really have to get in front of all of these people. And my final point, and hopefully not to steal anyone's thunder, nowadays people do their research on AI, LLMs, and if your content and thought leadership, and a nod to Nick, your research reports aren't in the market, how is anyone going to find out what you stand for, what you offer, even before they've spoken to one of your salespeople? Thank you.
Fabulous. And then over to Namrata.
So I'm Namrata Nadkarni. I am the CEO and founder of Intent Communications and Consulting. And I'm just going to straight up say, I used to be a journalist, so of course I lean very heavily towards content. But like for me, it's really obvious that brand is king. And I will say, to put it into like really easy ways to think about it, if you're saying performance of what? Your brand, right? It's how you're doing in the market, how people think about you, whether they're willing to buy. So I don't see sales as being really separate. I get that. And I actually agree with Nick in that ultimately you've got to pay your mortgage, you've got to pay salaries, you've got to have food on the table, and marketing is very important. But I would see it as Marketing creates the experience in a wonderful restaurant, but your brand, your content is the food. If the food is bad, or it makes you upset, or you don't really agree with it, you aren't going back, no matter how lovely the staff was, no matter how lovely the ambience was, no matter how lovely those chairs were. It makes no difference. If you really want to come back, you want to create, and exactly, Nick was on the money when he said it's an emotional response. You want that emotional response. You need the heart of it to be something you really connect with. And for me, that is brand. That said, I don't think that we should pit them against each other, because again, how good your brand is, you would only ever know if you're actually looking at performance, right? But I don't think that it is possible to turn around and say performance is more important than brand, because literally performance can't do anything without your brand if it's not on the money. And I think particularly in maritime, and I'm going to be very quick about this, I think in maritime, the importance of having content which aligns with your stakeholders is extremely important, because you have such varied stakeholders. You have your B2B audience and your B2C audience, which a lot of industries are just either B2B or B2C, but we've got to seafarers, we've got to actual businesses, you've got to have different messaging for each of them, you've got to have different emotional resonance for each of them, which means you have to be very clear where your brand stands on each of this, and then you should be looking at performance and you should be looking at these metrics. And it is important to see what you're doing, but it is a complicated industry that we're in, because also the difference between your business narrative versus your technical narrative versus your seafarer narrative, we've got it all in the mix. So it's complex, and without brand, basically, for me, brand is, you're not even king. Brand is ultimate ruler of the universe. So that's where I stand.
Amazing. What a start. Thank you very much. And last but by no means least, Sam, take it away.
Thank you. I'm really pleased I got to go last, because I get to listen to all you guys, and I'm going to try and not just respond to you all, which I've been making notes down. So let me just talk about what I want to say, and then we'll get into it. Oh, great discussion already. Cool. So I'm Sam, RM Potent. Agency's been going about 2.5 years. Previous to that, we built a 7-figure agency, again, doing marketing, all in B2B. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been doing one of two things. We do brand strategy, so building brands or websites, or we do sales-focused marketing for people. So we are quite literally, our two services are on either side of this debate. I've got a master's in psychology. I'm super nerdy about neuroscience. So a lot of what I do is bringing that into this world. Now, as what's already been said already, your brand is your long game. It's your awareness, your reputation, how people feel about you, the emotional element, how they feel about you before they need you. Your performance is the short game, measurable attribution, activity that drives a specific action, specific lead, specific response. You can track it to the penny. Two very different things. I think the problem is seeing it as brand versus performance, a bit like Amrata was just touching on there. For me, it's not a fight. They're two sides of the same thing. It's like having an engine and putting petrol in the engine. You need both to drive a car. You can't just have one. So for me, performance marketing, again, has already been discussed, is always going to be talking to that sort of 5% or more, geared towards that 5%, 10%, 3%, whatever it is, depending on what you're trying to sell. But it's always going to be around that kind of figure. We're always looking for that specific action. If we are just targeting all of our outreach, our content, our assets, everything we're creating, number one, we're probably pissing off the other 95% that aren't ready to buy right now. Number two, we're only ever going to grab a small amount of the market that we're trying to target. However, like you said at the beginning around low hanging fruit, we still need to go and grab that. So that needs to work as well. For me, a brand on the other side is looking more around, obviously, if you have a great brand and you have no performance marketing to go with it, the brand is absolutely pointless. And kind of what Namrata's just been saying there, or the other side to that. You could have the best brand in the world. You could have Nike as your brand. If you're doing nothing from a performance, you're relying on potential and people finding you through word of mouth, which is great, but you're not going to drive revenue. You're leaving a lot of money on the table. So I think we're into this weird place of trying to fight one versus the other. We need to be investing in both. And depending on, like your slide at the beginning, depending on what the goals of the business are at that one time, depends whether you want to put it more in performance or more in brand, and often the scale or the longevity of the business. I think the main thing, and I'll leave it here before I ramble on, the main thing for me is when we're looking at creating any kind of assets, whether that's an event, whether that's copy, whether that's in workshops, webinars, whatever it might be, can we always have in the back of our mind, how can we make this one asset do both? So how can we make a brand asset also work as a performance marketing tool? So let's take this, for example. you'd argue this is potentially a brand kind of event. It's showcasing MiM in the industry that they are. It's demonstrating the knowledge, the credibility, it's sharing for free, lots of knowledge, all the rest of it. How can we turn this also into a performance marketing event? So I presume with a fabulous marketer you are, Kaylee, we're going to clip this up. We're going to be using it on social, sending it out on email marketing, sending it out with campaigns to try and attract more customers into MiM. How can we do that with absolutely everything? Because let's take an event that you might be putting on for free. Again, largely you could argue is a bit of both, but probably more brand in terms of getting your name out there, maybe sponsoring events, something like that. For me, performance marketing, this is where we're getting into kind of an inception level of it. It's not just about the performance of the 100 people that turn up to that event, because the real ROI is in the 400 people that you spoke to about the event that didn't come, couldn't come, wasn't at the right date, whatever. That's where a lot of the money is. Whereas we actually focus on the end activity, comes all the way back around to what Nick said. I totally agree. Sales is what everything we are doing is for. So if we're only tracking the results of the actual asset, we're missing most of the ROI, which is all the other people that got contacted that maybe didn't quite download it, didn't come to the event, didn't actually join the webinar but signed up for it. That's where all the money for me is made, almost as much as the outputs of the actual event. So a long-winded way of saying, I kind of agree with everybody. You need, if you only got one and not the other, you've got a ceiling. If you've got one and not the other, you've got a ceiling. You need to have both working in tandem, and that terrible word, synergy, in synergy, they've got to be working together. Because you're just going to get unstuck at some point. I'll leave it there before I just go on.
There we go. Well, there we go. True to word. I'm sure you could keep going on that, Sam, without stopping for hours. And I think that's the same for all of us. So luckily, what we're going to be doing next is a little bit of cross-examining of each other. So as we've kind of started out, we've all got concepts here that align, some that don't, some clearly quite different views. So we are going to go into that. Before we do that, I just want to say, so those of you that can see here already, familiar faces and members, you know the deal. We're a chatty community. We like to get involved. So the chat in this webinar is absolutely for you to use. So if you want to drop your thoughts in there, agree, disagree, have questions, just say hello to each other, please do use that. What we will do is we will let these guys do their thing and have that kind of cross debate that we're about to launch into. And towards the end, when they tell you what metrics they think are their absolute must-haves, and we get into a bit of a more kind of practical things, if any of you do have questions, we will get to them. So use the chat, say hello. I can see some of you doing that already, but just wanted to say please do use that. So without further ado, Nick is in the hot seat because he's getting to go first, which is both his treat and also a little bit tricky because he doesn't get to hear what the others are starting to say. But we're going to be running here now between these guys. They've got a bit of an order to go through. They're going to be cross-examining each other, prodding, poking, asking questions. So we'll go through that, and there you go, guys. I'm going to leave it to you to take it away. Nick.
Awesome, thanks, Kaylee. Yeah, we didn't plan this in advance. I wasn't expecting to be sort of on my own in the performance camp, but it's great to hear different views. And Adel and Namrata, I think, are probably on the opposite side to me. Sam, you seem to be sort of somewhere in between us. So we've got a good set of rounded views here. I'd like to start with a question to Adel. Let's just say, for argument's sake, we run a brilliant brand campaign. It wins awards, and everyone massively respects it and thinks it's a wonderful thing. But it doesn't move a single commercial metric. Was that still good marketing?
Mm-hmm. Good question.
That's a very good question. As I said in the beginning, I think if you don't have an organic presence, and it doesn't have to just be an organic presence, an organic and, to Sam's point, an amplified paid presence that is brand, how are you going to show up? How is someone going to know about you? I'm sure you all go to events, you all have stalls, you're there for a reason. So whether it's sales or not, you're there for a presence. And I think, to my point, and again, my background is coming from Google and now at LinkedIn, AI is very top of my mind. So a question to you all is, when was the last time you actually visited a website and clicked on a link and actually read an article? And Namrata, as a former journalist, I'm sorry to poo-poo all over your former profession.
I feel the death of it. I know it.
But yes, using LLMs now, the way that people search, you have to have that content out there. You have to have your visibility. So I think that's very important. To your point, yes, what is the metric? How do you prove return on investment? Yeah, it's very difficult. And I think that's where you have to educate, to your point, your sales leaders, your finance leaders, and teach them about an upside down marketing funnel and tell them that this is the way that you push people down. And it's all about education. And I know that we as marketers often have that struggle. And I think like MMM modeling is still very like it's very opaque. It's still not very understanding. There's lots of different ways of doing it, but I think the best way of getting a return on investment, as you say, is brand awareness, unaided like brand recall. If you went out in the market and asked people, what are your favorite, I don't know, what's the most trustworthy shipping company, or what's the best cruise line, or pardon my ignorance of the maritime industry, but similar things, kind of unaided brand recall is a good measure of showing that your marketing works, and kind of sentiment analysis. So I completely take your point that it's not like this ad drove X amount of clicks that led to this many sales, but I still think it's very important.
I think on that, there are definitely areas I agree with you. I think it's very easy to massively over measure stuff, and actually you can get yourself like well into the weeds on measuring every performance metric out there, and sometimes it's just like a gut instinct of something being good marketing or not. And actually, Sam made a point in his opener about the kind of 95-5 thing. Like 95% of people aren't in the market at one time, and you don't want to annoy the 95%. And I kind of sat there and thought, if you're annoying the 95%, that's not performance marketing. That's just bad marketing. Like, if it doesn't provide value to the 95% who are not in the market, then you're probably missing something.
I quite agree. Can I come back on that? Because you're absolutely right. I quite agree. I think the problem we have is that most marketing that you see going out the door is aimed at that 5%. And when that marketing that's aimed at the 5% goes to the 95, that's when it's annoying. Correct. You should always be having nurture campaigns as well as performance or lead gen campaigns that go into the 95. And then, anybody else that's in your database, your network community, whatever, they should be getting, in my opinion anyway, regular once a month, once every 6 weeks at least, a nurture campaign with a fresh asset, free value, all the rest of it. But I think the problem is people treat that second, the large cohort of people, like they treat the smaller one and send the same amount of stuff after it. That was the point I was making. I agree.
Nick, a question back to you, and one that Andrew is in the comments has mentioned. You talk about performance a lot, you talk about working with sales. Do you have any good examples of how you have tied those two teams together for clients that you work with? And what looks good? What does success look like in that relationship?
Question?
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good question. I'm at risk of annoying the maritime marketing community even further by potentially saying, actually, in a larger sales and marketing organization, actually, I think it should sit under a single lead. Because I think you end up, without getting into the weeds on like org design, you end up at the risk of having the sales team blame the marketing, which happens all the time. I just don't have enough leads, and then the marketing team turn around and say, we did 600 leads last month. Like, what's going on? And that you end up with that kind of misalignment naturally, and people blaming each other. Whereas I think if they sit under the same function, you can get to that alignment much easier. And so kind of having go-to-market as a function in an organization, I think is potentially a more kind of interesting way of looking at this. And then I think the other area that I think we often underestimate the importance of is how marketing assets can be used to support the sales process. I think we spend too much time thinking about brand and too much time thinking about, how am I going to generate leads? And then don't think at all about how do we take a nurtured lead into an opportunity, and how do we take it from an opportunity to quote out to close, all of that sort of process. And actually, I think marketing has a massive role to play there, because I kind of view marketing as the sales assets that are working when the salespeople aren't in the room with the customer. And so if you don't have alignment on that, or if the focus is entirely on brand or entirely on top of pipeline, then I just think you miss so much opportunity to bring everyone closer together. And then the other area where I think the partnership is really important is actually getting feedback from the sales team about why sales don't go through. And sometimes not sometimes, if it's not budget, time, or need, it comes down to the messaging. and it comes down to how well aligned the messaging is to the actual needs of the end user. Salespeople have a great handle on that because they're the ones getting rejected all the time for various reasons. So I think it's really important, and I think a lot of organizations just kind of split the two off, and you miss so much value.
Sorry to be really annoying. Can I jump in and add a point on that? Because I think that's a really good point made there, Nick. I think one of the most underused data sets in any organization is the sales conversations that happen, whether that's meetings or early sales calls. Pretty much everything is transcribed now. We have recordings of every call. As a marketing department, team, person, agency, whatever you are, should never be guessing or Googling or GPTing or whatever, researching what you're to be creating. The answers are all in the sales conversations. Sales teams aren't going to give you the information because they're too busy on to the next one, getting rejected and trying to make bank. What we need is to take it off their job, so it's not a job for them. A simple, you could vibe code something in an hour that takes all transcriptions in, identifies problems, pain points, challenges, and all the rest of it that you then use to create the marketing assets around. And lo and behold, when they go out to the market, they're going to resonate because the content's come from the horse's mouth. So again, I agree a lot with what you said there, Nick.
I'm also going to be cheeky and jump in, if that's all right.
It's
just like, if we can do that, I have opinions. I'm surprised to anyone who knows me. But I was just about to say, I was like, one of the things that I think, like, I completely agree that we need to be talking to salespeople. And actually, when we do content and we do brand kind of awareness and positioning, one of the questions that I always ask the client is, what do your salespeople tell you is how the door opens, stays open, and what actually closes a deal? Because these are completely different questions, right? How do you get into the room? What do people enjoy talking to you about? And then what was the pain point that you addressed? And because then you can see that pattern in data. And I'm sure Sam and Adel, you're both going to be horrified at many organizations have wonderful CMSs. The number of people where I go in and I'm like, what is your CMS? It's an Excel spreadsheet, means that the data is not as comprehensive as it could be to really be able to do the kind of vibe coding, kind of pushing all of that out. There's not that level of detail. And particularly if you're at a trade show and you're just running around talking to people, often it's an emotional core, right? You walk in and you're like, these people are all at the moment, everyone is thinking about the Straits of Hormuz, or everybody's thinking about how they invested so much money in decarb solutions. And actually, because there's no global regulation, this guaranteed kind of payoff is now like, it's moved away and the horizon has just shifted. And so you're like, well, actually, this is a problem. We need to switch our narrative. We need to be talking about energy efficiency or whatever it is. I'm not going to go into the weeds. But my point is, having those conversations is incredibly important, even for the brand side, because if your narratives, if you're positioning yourself with your content, not at the emotional heart of what people care about, why on earth would they care about you? Right. And I really feel that quite strongly. Sorry, back to you, Nick.
No, it's good. Go on, Nick. You're gonna think you and Adel finish up those bits.
All I'll say in response to that, and I agree with you, Namrata. I'm also something of a content geek. One thing I hate and I see all the time is when companies put huge amounts of effort into like massively overproduced like about us stuff. And someone described it as weeing all over your website, like we do this, we do that, and instead you need to invert it to focus on the needs of your customer, the needs of your user, and like the problems they face, and then maybe how you solve them. But if people see all you're talking about is us and about us and about about Mary's cat and all that sort of stuff, then it just doesn't solve a problem, and therefore that kind of conversion point just drifts further and further away.
No, that's good stuff. And actually, Namrata, you've teed us up perfectly. So the reason that I'd split you guys strategically like I have is that I thought that Sam and Nam, as a pair, would be able to actually kind of give each other a good amount of questions, because you kind of, I'm sure, have got similar mindsets on certain things, but actually you understand the intricacies, Namrata, of what the maritime industry actually looks like and how relationships driven and kind of closed handshakes and face-to-face deals, versus Sam, who you've got all this kind of innovation and ideas that you can bring to it. And I was hoping that you guys, I will leave you to ask each other the questions that you so wish, but hopefully we'll be able to dig into that a little bit more. So actually, I think, Sam, you were going to go first and fire away. What do you want to dig out of Namrata's opinions, thoughts, insights, expertise?
Yeah, fab. Thanks, Katie. So I think for me, like I said, half our business is on the brand side. So depending on what project or client I'm working with, often I'll dive on either side of the fence here. But fundamentally, I agree both are needed. You're obviously very much more on the brand side. We're bleeding slightly into the metrics question, so apologies, Kaylee. But I'd be really keen to know, from a brand performance aspect, I don't want to say metrics, what indicators are there for you that the brand work that you're doing is having an impact and is performing, albeit it's not going to be a direct, this brand campaign gave this amount of deals or whatever, but what are the kind of things, nuances, intricacies that you look at that are good signals that what you're doing is producing good results?
It's a really interesting question. It's actually something that Kaylee and I talked about when she actually invited me to be here. So I slightly accidentally prepared for this. But basically, the thing that I feel really strongly about is you have to actually ask the person what they want to achieve. And often you will find that people don't know what they want to achieve, or they're like, you'll be like, who do you want to talk to? Who's your audience? And they're like, well, everyone with a wallet. And you're like, well, that's not helpful for your actual customers. Who is your primary audience, your secondary audience, your tertiary audience? And based on that, you then have your metrics, right? And I say this all the time to people. I'm like, if you are getting an article placed, if you're getting something in terms of branding, brand visibility with a media outlet, you should know who your core media outlets are. And in Maritime, depending on what you're doing, if it's for ship owners, it's going to be trade winds. If it's going to be technology, you've got technology options. I'm not going to name any because obviously Nick's on here and he knows where to find me at events. But you have your different audiences and you should be thinking about that. If you want really saucy opinions, you go to Splash, right? Because Sam has got that teed up. Different Sam. But the reason I say that is because getting something into one of those is more valuable than getting something into 3 or 4 or 5 publications that don't really matter. I do fully accept that AI is changing the name of the game a little bit. And when we do reports now for clients, and we still do metrics, right, obviously, and you say, okay, right, it's been in here, you do have people who go, right, I wanted to be here early, but then the AI is saying, actually, the reach of this particular thing, and the one that always throws up Maritime metrics is Yahoo. Yahoo, for some reason, picks up a report somewhere, and then suddenly you're in the millions of hits, and you're like, that I promise you, a million people in Maritime don't care about this report that you've put out. I'm very sorry. And you've got to kind of educate them. And it's, Adel, it's to your point, it's this education, which sounds condescending, but it isn't. It's where is your actual ROI? Where is it going to give you the best impact? What is the strategic result? And once you're able to determine that, then you create bespoke metrics. So for me, if somebody was to say to me, I really want to be talking to ship owners about X, Y, and Z, I would literally say, give me your budget, tell me how much you've got to spend, and then I backward engineer what we're going to deliver. And in some cases, I'm like, actually, what you really need is not an article placed. You need to have lunch with this person and you need to take them to this incredible restaurant that they've always wanted to go to. So I know they'll show up and they'll like you, and then you can have a conversation and that will lead to something. But in terms of branding and that kind of brand awareness, that overall metric, for me, you have a few things. One will, of course, be your LinkedIn, your social media following. Those are metrics, those are numbers. That's general market awareness. How many people have signed up to your newsletter? Is it going up or is it staying flat or static? After that, it would be, and I know this is not really tangible, but almost warmth. Are doors opening for you? Are you getting invited to events? Are you having to buy tickets to LISW, or is somebody inviting you to sit on their table? That kind of thing. And I saw in the chat, there was a question saying, how do you get BD to buy into this? And here's the thing, your BD people, like if I know someone is sales, I am not going to spend a bunch of my time wanting to talk to them unless I want to buy something, unless I've made that jump into that 5%. But if I've got somebody who is generally talking to me about pain points or industry or whatever, I'm far more willing to have that conversation. And to me, that's brand awareness. That's that metric of I'm willing to open a door. I'm willing to give up that 15 minutes that I'm willing to do. But of course, LinkedIn, if you're on TikTok, on whichever metrics you're in, and of course, which events are you being invited to? Are you being invited as a speaker? Are you just being invited to buy a ticket? How are you doing that? And that's how I'd look at it. I hope that answers it. I kind of went into the really maritime weeds a little bit.
Great, really good answer. I'll add one. I'll try and get the bridge between Nick and Namrata here. And so I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you've said there. I think the metrics that matter are then of those people that you've said you've got open the door with these people, they're early up in the funnel. I think then it's a case of all the metrics that Nick mentioned, your customer acquisition costs, your LTV, all the rest of it. If your brand's performing, those costs should be reducing overall. I think that's again a really neat way to look at it. Great answer. Thank you.
And then I think I get to ask you a question.
You do,
which is a bit exciting for me. So, because obviously you've done a lot of B2C and B2B as well. Where do you see the metrics really shifting for those? And is there like a mindset real difference between kind of marketing in one and marketing in the other when it comes to getting your C-suite buy-in?
Cool. Sorry to disappoint. I'm mainly B2B. We focus on B2B pretty much.
You probably said that, and my brain just. I've. That's a question, Adel, for you later, because you're the person who bridges that. But I've got a different question for you, Sam, then.
I'll launch into that one if you like. I mean, in terms of B2B, I think the problem where we get in terms of general marketing is kind of what I've mentioned before. Everybody having a similar message to the entire market. It's a bit old school now, but the classic funnel, top, middle, and bottom, doesn't quite work like that in the 21st century. But just to keep things nice and simple, I think the easiest analogy or way to visualize it for me is if you've got people in the top of the funnel, they're not problem aware. They don't realize they have a problem, or they don't have a problem. Therefore, they're obviously not solution aware. So if we're marketing them with solutions, why would they care? They don't have a problem. I think people in the middle of the funnel are then problem aware. They can tell something's creaking, or they're aware that something isn't 100% right, but they may not know what the solution is. They might not know exactly what the problem is, but they know there's something not right, but they're not in solution mode because they're not actively looking to solve it because they're not sure what it is. For those middle of funnel people, we need to be educating, antagonizing against that problem, podding and proking to make them realize, oh God, I do have that issue. And then they come down into the bottom of the funnel, which is problem aware and solution aware. Hence, we can gather them with solutions. So I think that in terms of breaking down how we approach different areas of the funnel, it's super simplistic, but it's a rough idea of how to approach that, I suppose.
I'm going to very cheekily ask the question that I did mean to ask you, because obviously it was the Adel question. I was really curious. Are you finding that people are really AI aware when it comes to that buy-in? Again, it's the people who are setting the budgets as opposed to the people who are executing. Because I think when you're at the sharp end, it's really obvious, and we see it all the time. And we talk to people, and in Maritime specifically, they tend to be like, what? No, they'll come to our website and read this 5,000 word white paper. And I'm like, no one's reading it. So do you see that change? Are you seeing that difference in kind of wider B2B?
So without going down an AI rabbit hole, we're very deep on AI. We've got a very deep bench.
We need to chat later.
Yeah, oh, happily. But where we're at now, creating digital asset, marketing asset, used to be something like an event or a webinar, something like that. It might be a white paper or a report or blogs, articles, things like that. The beauty of being a commercial creative in this day and age is we can take something like that and turn it into an interactive dashboard with a load of reporting, and that it's hyper personalized to certain companies within minutes. So I think where AI comes in, we're not at a point of how can we implement it to make stuff better. It's look, have an eye, like think bigger. So the main thing that I'm finding is I'm showing people, hey, we've built this, or we've built this, or this internal thing, or we've built this external thing. And only when they see something do they then think, oh, so could you do this? And the thing that they ask for is like 1% of the potential. So I think it's more a case of people aren't in any way, and it's understandable, because if you don't see it or realize you can do that, you don't know what you don't know. But I think generally the capability is 100 times further on than what most people are viewing it as, and that is and I work in quite a lot of industries that are fairly tech savvy. I do a lot of recruitment clients, for example, who are fairly tech savvy. Even those guys are barely scratching the surface in terms of what's from a marketing perspective. And it, for me, it is AI is the link between brand and performance in essence, because we're able to do both. We're able to create brand stuff with metrics tracked by AI. Sorry, go on.
I think no. I was about to say I so agree with you, and I think that people are often trying to recreate methods that we know, and I'm like, dude, you don't need to think horse and carriage. You're on the DeLorean.
Exactly.
Just zoom
Exactly. Yeah. Can we create this and pull this information? Well, yeah, but we could do so much more with that. Like unbelievably.
You don't even need to be thinking along those things. You're not constrained.
Simple little things. I'll just give a practical example for people. If your sales team, and somewhere marketing can massively just earn their keep, if your sales team is still sending off proposals that are static already, like let's level that up. You could take a transcript, pop it in, and have a digital proposal that's out there as a HTML or as a website that is clickable. You could have a load of quotes from the call in there, and that could be done within 5-10 minutes. That when you then half an hour after a call, you're presenting your sales team back with their hyper-personalized proposals for their clients, makes them look unbelievably good. It's a brand element because it makes you look really good as a brand, but you're obviously much more likely to win that business, have more to follow up on. Coming back to, I can't remember whose point it was, I think it was Nick, around being a support function for sales. I see sales and marketing as just one team, a revenue generation team. They just do different jobs. That's the way we see it. They're just doing slightly different roles within it, and it should be working a cyclical nature. sales go and have the conversations, retrieve all the information, marketing, mine all that information, harvest it for all the good stuff, create something that's going to resonate, pass it back to the sales team, and they go, oh, Jesus, that's amazing. I'll use that, and get back on the phone, goes back out, has conversations, and comes back round. So that's really how we see it. And I'll end on this because I love this analogy. I know I always use it. When we talk about brand, people often say, not directed at you, Nick, brand's not important. It doesn't earn its keep, all the rest of it. I always use the Rolex at Wimbledon as an example. Rolex don't advertise at Wimbledon. They just sponsor it. They just use their brand. They don't run massive ad campaigns. They don't have really huge amounts of marketing that's trying to sell watches. Guess when they sell the most amount of watches in the year is it's when their name is absolutely everywhere. I think it's probably one of the biggest kind of brand wins that you could.
When you watch an Instagram video of Henry Cavill.
Well, that could be a whole other debate now, but maybe we should.
No, I was like,
maybe on this call. Nick, I'm going to give you a chance just to jump in because I think you're in high demand. I'm sure you want to have a few words before you may have to dip.
I guess to come back on Sam's point, and I don't disagree with it, although I'll probably frame it slightly differently. I would think that's excellent performance marketing, but there we are. And there's also a question between from in the chat about how you'd split marketing spend between brand and direct ROI. I think the way I view this is that all marketing should be good brand marketing, and all marketing should have some kind of ROI attached to it. And I think if you're not measuring the effectiveness of it, then you're potentially sending good money after bad. And if your performance marketing or ROI-driven marketing or data-driven marketing is not enhancing your brand, it's bad marketing, full stop. And I think so. I think that's why I kind of view it as a hierarchy. Brand is incredibly important, really, really important. But in terms of kind of thinking about brand marketing, in my view, I think we should think about how it's going to perform for us as an organization, and then make sure the branding bit works so that you end up with good brand marketing off the back of it. But it should come out the top of the funnel of just good marketing in general.
Perfect. All right. Well, the chat is going off. I think actually, Adel, you are doing some heavy lifting in the chat. People have got loads of questions there for you. So if anyone's got any questions for the others, feel free to do that. So Nick is in high demand. Nick, you've probably seen Nick pop up here, there and everywhere. He's actually got another webinar. So he wanted to get his points in and now he has had to, unfortunately, jump off. But that is fine because we have, as you can see, clearly got plenty to talk about between the rest of us here. So I'm going to first, before we continue in the chat, so Ada, you're going to have to extract yourself from the chat for a minute. So sorry, guys, you'll have him back. In fact, we could even keep asking questions. I know that there's some more generic ones. No, I know. I'm impressed with the multitasking.
I cannot be doing that. I'm focused here. So sorry if I'm ignoring anyone in the chat. That sounds like far too much multitasking.
I'll be paying attention right after.
So what we'll do a little bit first, because I don't know about everyone watching, and I'm sure that the chat will agree, but this is a really great way to kind of provoke thoughts and come up with ideas and feel a little bit justified. I think we all like to kind of feel like, oh yeah, that was my opinion, and someone else has that too. That's a nice fuzzy feeling, but also to be inspired and have new things. The other thing that I'm really keen that we take away, and when we do these masterclasses, there's always, you want to be able to take something away that's practical and useful. So I've asked these guys to come up with what metrics they think would be their non-negotiables if they had to pick just a few, what metrics they think are important, and just to give you a little bit of insight and a bit of direction there. So I'm going to pop them on the hot seat each to kind of talk through what, when it comes to actually what should you be tracking, what should you be looking at, how do you, demonstrate value to your stakeholders. I'm going to get them to go through that. And then after that, we will dive straight back into any conversations that the guys want to go through between them, because I'm sure there'll be lots. And if not, we'll go straight into the chat and questions you've got, either the chat or the Q&A function. I'll do my best to keep an eye on that and we'll go from there. So metrics, I didn't have a plan of who wants to go first. So I can either put you on the spot or you can volunteer yourself. Sam, that looks like a volunteer. Yeah, perfect.
I'm slightly different here probably than the other two guys. My background is I'm not a marketer at all. I learned on the job, shall we say, building the last business. So I come from more of a sales background. And like I said, for me, it's not marketing and sales. It's one team that both have the same goal of bringing in revenue. So for me, I see marketing as really, really simple. There's a ton of, as Nick said, the minutiae of metrics that you can measure. For me, I'd simply view it as, are we increasing sales activity? Have we increased the activity that sales are doing? Have we provided them assets that have meant their calls are up? Have we meant that they are having more meetings by the responses that we get? Whatever it might be. The reason being that we can't always track it to revenue. It's not fair because there's a salesperson in the middle. If we supply great leads, salesperson does a bad job on a pitch, revenue looks bad, and that can't be marketing's fault, right? So for me, it's all the buck always doesn't go to revenue, it stops at sales. Now, if we're not creating opportunities and valid opportunities to make sales lives easier and give them just no excuse to not pick up the phone to this person, because why wouldn't you? It's a red hot lead. That to me is the metrics that matter. Are we seeing sales activity going up? That way, when you're in your board meetings, reporting back to the C-suite, if you can prove that your metrics are increasing sales activity and revenues not increasing, great, it's a sales problem. It's a training problem. That's not a marketing problem. If we are seeing that actually what we're producing on a marketing perspective or a marketing level isn't increasing sales activities, one of two problems: what we're creating isn't great, or it's not resonating with the target audiences, and it's not what the sales team need, or the sales team aren't picking it up and doing what they need to do with it. And we're no way looking to pitch, but that's kind of a little bit that we often help work with companies in, is the uptake of marketing into BD processes and getting marketing assets into sales processes, because without that, you could do some great stuff as marketeers and never get seen, and sales will always just see you as a bit of a nuisance or a pain or just an extra thing to get stuff done, which obviously isn't the case. So that would be my fairly simplistic view on metrics when it comes to marketing.
I can volunteer to jump in straight after, because I don't disagree with Sam, and we have a pretty similar approach also, because I wasn't a marketeer to start off with, so I've learned on the job, same as you. To me, it's your standard sales funnel. At different points of the funnel, at different points of your pipeline, you should have different metrics. And if you're not looking at that, you aren't able to identify where your sales pipeline is breaking down, right? If your universe is too small, that means your brand doesn't resonate. Broaden out your universe. You should be talking to thousands of companies, and if you aren't, and if your work doesn't really work with them, you need to widen your story, you need to widen your narrative, you need to be making sure that you are relevant to be in those other rooms. Don't close yourself off and be like, I only want to sell to this one type of customer, that's it, because you don't know when the customer that you speak to today will be in a position to influence somebody who has the budget for what you want to do. Any of that. You want to keep it open, you want to keep it fluid. And if you're in Maritime, you already know we are the Hotel California of industries. You come in, you never leave, you're here for life, which is wonderful, but that means you change functions, you work through different companies at different levels. So your person today who is part of that, 95%, and let's even say the 5% that has got nothing to do with you, could be the person with purchasing power tomorrow. So don't alienate them. There ain't no point. Secondly, if you're moving down, so your universe is your brand, you're then looking at your marketing, which is your warm leads. Who's interested? How are you resonating? Where is what's happening? Are your LinkedIn numbers going up? Are people trying to attend your events? Are they participating? Are they engaging? Yes. Awesome. Your marketing function is working well. The content has been packaged beautifully and people are interested in looking at what's on the wrapper. And then you get to the bit where you've got your hot leads and your sales conversion. And if at that point of the funnel, you're seeing that it's all just falling out the bottom and there's nothing that's actually being held, then you have a sales issue. And your metrics there should absolutely be conversion rates. It should absolutely be, are you meeting your predictive analytics in terms of what you thought was going to happen in terms of percentage of your universe being converted to actual sales? And of course, if it's consistently falling through, you should be able to track where that's happening. And if you aren't, you have bad metrics. And then at that point, you can then decide where you want to invest to address that issue. Because in some cases, you have a beautiful story, but you didn't pay the entry price to be in the right room. Actually, you needed to do that. But in some cases, it's, this was a product that you was too aggressive with the sales. They didn't have enough content. You needed to have content. Or some cases, you're like, your salesperson just didn't follow up. Or in one case, and this is a true story for me, my salesperson followed up so aggressively. The client was like, I never want to talk to them. Please, can you do sales? And I was like, please don't make me do sales. That's not my job, right? They wanted to spend money. They didn't want to spend it with that individual. So remember, that's a big part of your conversion as well. It could just be a personality clash. With that, over to you, Adel.
Namrata has just explained the whole marketing funnel and everything, so I can only add and
Good luck.
say that was amazing. There's nothing else. I would just say, because I've been sitting on the brand side, I do believe in performance marketing, so don't get me wrong. But I think things like I've lost my train of thought now, but I've completely lost it. But yes, I think things like tackling Rob's question as well, like how do you kind of prove that marketing is increasing sales activity and isn't just lead quantity? Is that, yes. Things like share of voice, as you said, if you're putting, there are all of these PR research firms that can tell you your share of voice, your number of mentions compared to your competitors in any given time period, how prominent they are, whether or not we believe that. Not always a piece in the FT doesn't always mean that it's more prominent, as Namrata said, to the trade press or a specific technology in maritime trade press might be more impactful. So I think that also shows, and I think when we talk about brand and kind of is it effective? Yes, recall. I think even if your brand doesn't lead to sales directly, there can be a causal link. I think you would hope that in any given year, if you have a good brand campaign, you will have an increase in sales. And as Sam says, you can't necessarily always attribute it to sales or marketing, but you hope there is a causal link. The more people have seen it, more people recognize you, more people go down the funnel. And I think that's what a lot of luxury brands outside of maritime do. Like, why do sportsmen and women, as soon as they finish their match, put on their Rolex or put on their Swatch? That's just branding. Like, no one's going to buy a £10,000 watch just of looking at a tennis player doing it, but at least it gets your mind going and puts the topic in your mind and
It's
etc.
that positive association, isn't it? This person who I admire is using this brand, and therefore it's the halo effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think generally we talk in marketing, just to divert, about marketing as in like promotion, but marketing obviously has broader implications. Like, you can have the best marketing in the world or communications in the world, but if your product doesn't live up to it as well, then you are going to lose it further down, exactly as down the funnel.
Yeah, all interconnected. Oh God, I'll let you. Do you want to add something to that, Sam? I can see.
I was just going to come into Rob's question there about proven marketing is increasing sales activity, a lot on lead quality, subjective. So a few things here. I think number one, you could very easily build something. We've built something for an internal client that just helps track anytime that anything's mentioned on a call, whether it's an asset call or whether it's an event or something, so it pulls through from transcript and logs whether it was mentioned on the call. So it's not directly attributable, but if you can say, well, look, of these 100 sales calls that have happened, 47% of them have mentioned the event. You can't directly say that was a thing, but it helps increase it. So I think being quite clever with what you can build there. I'm going to be super unpopular here, really unpopular. I don't think the job of getting in touch with leads is always a salesperson's job. I think marketing can do more of that. And I think there is a lot of marketing that says, I've done my bit, here's your leads, you go. And then that, like we talked about, disconnect of sales for whatever reason, not picking up on them, and there being that bit of issue there. For me, there's lots of ways that marketing can get in touch with leads that's not in a sales way. I'd also argue that a marketer getting in touch with a prospect and immediately making it clear it's not a sales call is one of the best ways to calm the amygdala when you're approaching a cold call, so people are actually going to listen, reduces their fight or flight response. Something like, hey, it's Sam calling from X, don't worry, it's not a sales call. Straight away, this person's going to listen to me, and you might then ask about, we sent you an invite to the event, just wanted to pick your brains on whether the topic wasn't right, whether it's not the right location, whatever. Have a nice, easy conversation, in no way sales. The reason why that's also beneficial is there's no salesperson I've ever met that if you go to them and said, I gave you these 10 leads, you didn't follow up with them, and don't worry, I've spoke to 5 and booked in 3 meetings for you. Their ego is not going to like that. And next time you provide them with 10 leads, you can be damn sure they are going to be calling those 10 leads if they know that you might actually do some of their job better for them. So I think although that's quite uncomfortable for a lot of marketers, it doesn't have to be on the phone. But I think if you can push yourself slightly into that stretch zone of, okay, well, we can do a little bit more. Like I said, it's not 2 different things. It's the same role. And sometimes some companies, those edges are slightly more blurred. So apologies, it's probably an unpopular comment, but that's
No, Sam, I'm going to hold you on that point, and I'm going to connect it to another question that was actually at first put to Adel, but I think we can all talk around this, and I think all 3 of you are going to want to chip in. So that piece around what can marketing do, and sometimes it might depend on your org structure or how many are in that team and how much capacity you have, and whether you're running about 50 million projects all at once and your deadline was yesterday. It's not always easy, but actually in terms of that, what can the marketers do? And maybe it's not picking up the phones, maybe it's around the personal branding. So there's a question in here that's, what are the insights and steps around, building a strong presence and standing out on LinkedIn? Now, that is something that I think would be an interesting topic on, because we all know the stats now that your LinkedIn pages are getting like 10 times more connections. The personal brands people buy from people, it's about trust. great as marketers that our job is to help and push up and provide a platform for sales and business leaders. What about the marketers as well? Would you say, Sam, on your point of what the marketing doing, do you think there's a part for everyone in this, or is it something that we'd look at to support our team as a function? So I'll mic drop that and please, the three of you debate.
I think anybody that's client facing should have a personal brand. I don't see any benefits in not. I will not hear an argument as to why that's not beneficial. Even if you've got 100 really tight connections or 10,000 connections that are all tight, it doesn't really matter. You've still got an opportunity to sell to people. It's free advertising essentially at the end of the day. I think for me, where people go wrong with this, particularly when they think about if you're internal, so we obviously do personal branding for clients. So if you're an internal marketer, you're doing it for like your C-suite, for example, and you're building out their personal brands. I think one of the common things we see the problem is they think, great, founder, CEO, let's get them firing because they've got the biggest reach, best network, they're most known, all the rest of it. In most cases, or a lot of cases, that might be true. I was going to say take that, but that makes me look really old. Let's say One Direction. In One Direction, most people, a lot of people probably like Harry Styles. Certainly my daughter loves Harry Styles, so I gather he is generally the front runner. Can I remember Liam? Was he one of the others? I'm sure not the is he the one that died? The other, Niall, is that one? Yeah, Niall.
I can name a bunch of people from Take That, or
we'll go for Take That. The point I'm trying to make is if you choose Robbie as your CEO and you think, great, let's get Robbie out there in front of people. Do you know what? A lot of people actually like Mark. And if you don't get the CFO out there that will connect with a whole different group of audience, then you're missing out on a whole potential pool of people. To get boring and psychological, if we've got different Surrounded by Idiots is a great book, like basic book to read on this. But if we've got different color profiles for different personalities, your CEO, for example, your MD, whatever, is generally going to be more of a red, more of a get shit done, let's move quickly, not too wasteful of time, not too bothered about detail. Someone that's like an ops or a finance person is more likely to be a blue, more detail orientated, more risk averse, likes to know all the facts and figures, things like that. So in your audience, you're going to have all those different types of personalities. If you just pick one person, say the founder or head of sales or whatever, and build your personal brand for the company around them, you're only going to target one group of people, whereas really you want to pick a handful of core people in the organization that have different personality profiles and then build those organic profiles out so you're attracting lots of different personalities in your wider total addressable market. Go for it, Namrata.
I was about to say, absolutely agree. And in fact, there's like an additional point, which is from a risk management perspective, if you only have a single face to your company and they are on holiday, unavailable, hit by a bus, your brand disappears. It goes completely invisible, which is like, I'm so risk averse for that. But also the other thing is, you can play, right? You can have personality. So you could absolutely have the person like in Maritime, for those of you who are in Maritime, you will have the person who has the business narrative, the one that's going to resonate the most with ship owners who are like, I don't want to spend money. I want it to be there. I want regulation to be the driver for it. And then you can absolutely have someone who's like your CTO or your technologist who's like, AI is beautiful and you're in the DeLorean and you can do all of this stuff. You also should then have somebody who's technical, who could be trusted to have if you just look at a really easy way to think about it is if you look at the shelf of shampoos and conditioners at your local, whatever, Tesco or Co-op or whatever, and there's like a bunch of them there, and all of them promise essentially really lovely hair, but it's like, do you want it to be shiny? Do you want it to be conditioned? Is it Dream Lens? Does it need UV protection? Whatever the hell it is. Most of it is owned by like 3 or 4 companies anyway. They've just subdivided the market to make sure that if you have an interest that isn't their core brand, you are still part of that sales universe. And that to me is excellent brand positioning. If you don't have your salespeople, your business development people as part of your brand, if they only show up, and I put a comment about this in the chat, if they only show up to close the deal and take the money or be rejected, there is no emotional, nice association with them. That is a failure of marketing. That's a failure of brand positioning. To me, that's just wasted opportunity. Why wouldn't you? If your salesperson doesn't come across as a thought leader that actually understands the market, why would anyone talk to them? I wouldn't. Sorry. And Adel, I could see you kind of pointing and nodding. So I realize I need to hand the ball over to you. Sorry.
I was just, very much agreeing with you. Yeah, I think very self-serving as well, like your brand awareness. Yes, you are an employee at a company, but ultimately when you want to move on or create your own thing as well, your profile is what leads and what people look at. So yes, it does benefit your company. Yes, it does benefit your brand, but it does benefit your own brand as well. So I would strongly encourage everyone to post, no matter how cringe it may sometimes be. but really most of you are the experts in your field and people connect with you for this reason. LinkedIn, sorry to sell my own company, but it's not just for job searching, it's informational, it's people come to it every day. As someone mentioned in the morning, they check it. It is full of rubbish sometimes, but a lot of things is valuable and you can block people if you want.
I'm so addicted to LinkedIn. It has like overtaken, I'm really sad to say how old I am, but it's overtaken Facebook for me. And I was like, oh God, am I just a workaholic? And maybe. But also, I think people are using, ever since Twitter kind of evolved into X, I think LinkedIn really benefited from that vacuum in terms of brand positioning for those market conversations. Because I think Twitter was a halfway point. You could be personal, but you could also be brand. And on LinkedIn, you were expected to be brand, but now you are also a personal brand. And I think that's really benefited. And to us, it's a massive platform, like specifically for brand positioning and lead gen. That's not me selling LinkedIn. This is me saying to all the marketeers in the call, you all know this, right? Like, where are you finding people? Where are you positioning people? Where are you making sure that the article that you put into, your Tradewinds or C-Trade or whatever, where are you building that conversation, that thought leadership conversation into that warmer marketing point and into that sales conversion where you say, look, we talked about X, Y, and Z. Let me talk to you about the money that we saved our client, blah, 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 blah. Let me talk to you about this product that I can specifically identify, which does blah, which is your warm leads, kind of your sales funnel kind of closing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a great topic. I think it'll probably do a whole extra spin-off workshop on this, just going through all the different LinkedIn things, because there's so much to it. Brand, personal. I mean, I get on my phone every now and then. You could probably tell me what's actually going on, but sometimes I'll go on and then it's all reels focused and it's all short form videos. And I'm like, oh, where's this come from? I'm just stuck scrolling here and then it will disappear again. And so it's interesting to see like how there's so many different types of audiences and how we interact with it differently from desktop to mobile. And for marketers, that's an interesting thing because it's, okay, we're not just putting good content out there, but do we do the newsletter on there? Are we putting the article on? Are we doing a carousel? Are we doing a video? What's working? I mean, LinkedIn on its own is just a huge beast of a thing that does everything from showcasing a brand to building relationships. So maybe we should pause that and I think rope you back in for some LinkedIn specific stuff because I think that would go down well. Just conscious we are getting close to the time. It's a good conversation. I wanted to have a little scroll through the chat. I don't know if any of you guys had spotted something in there that you particularly wanted to address or you wanted to say. I think Sam, you look like you've got something. I'm going
to have to say I'd love to, and anybody please connect with me and send me a message. I'm happy to chat through any of this stuff for hours and then with anybody, but I've got to go get my kids and I don't think they'd appreciate being left at school. So I'm going to have
to we'll leave you with the last word.
Guys, thank you very much. I think it's been a great chat. So I think panelists, let's catch up. And anybody that's not been on the panel, also fire with me any questions. If you want to pick my brain, particularly on any of the AI bits and pieces or just anything we've spoken about at all, then feel free to follow up and have a wonderful Wednesday, guys. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
I was going to quickly answer the point that Rob asked a question on.
Yeah, we've still got time in here. So I think those of you, thank you all for still joining us. The majority of everyone I think is still on the call. We had it in for a little bit longer. Yes, just school runs and webinars are not a good mixture. So take it away.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting. Should you be sending out your sales campaign from a brand name or personal sales name? And to me, again, divide and conquer. Right. You want some coming out from the company, because again, if everything goes out from an individual, if that individual leaves, you've lost your audience. You've lost the warm fuzzies, again, that you've associated because you've built that person as your brand, but they should not be. A single point of failure is just bad planning in terms of risk management, full stop. So any single point of failure, whether it's for brand positioning, whether it's for emails, whether it's for whatever, but also what you could do is you could have the more generic stuff come out from your company's name. So if your intent, our newsletters go out from intent, but where we're talking about, for example, we've got an event in October, which is our digitalization and AI summit. I set up an email that went out because I was saying to people, hey, come buy tickets to this and I will give you a code to get you a discount to be able to come. And it was personal because I sent it to like personal people, versus the company, which was like, hey, we as an organization are doing this, please come here. It's very important. We're going to have Google, we're going to have Uber, we're going to have blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't a sales pitch. My point was divide and conquer your narratives but have multiple narratives. Because if you don't, again, if one person decides that I'm just not their cup of tea, they're not going to open my emails. And then the entire organization misses out. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. Did you want to join that, Adel?
Yeah, I think personally, it kind of depends on how many people you're emailing as well. Like,
Yes.
is this a mass email to thousands of people? Are you sending it to from a like no reply email address? Like, I feel like sometimes if it comes from a personal person, they might expect a reply. Or if you're pitching it, so yeah, it can sometimes be like a faceless
I think
person
that's interesting as well.
communicating to you.
Yeah, because
So
sometimes you feel like, are they just trying to pretend that it's personal? You know, don't fool me. You know, you got to have that. You got to have genuine. So all of our lovely members and our community that we're building here, you'll get messages that we send out, and sometimes you'll get that from myself and from the team because we've got something to say to you as our cohort of members. If we're putting something out there to our 15,000 strong newsletter that we just want to say, hey, this is all the stuff we're doing, that's us as an organisation talking to you and telling you what's going on. So you know, from marketing and Maritime's perspective, we do a bit of both, and you know, we try to kind of make sure that we are always testing and experimenting things. You know, we want to put marketing forward. We're here to kind of champion and try these things, so that's what we do.
And my personal pet peeve, by the way, is like companies sending emails that pretend like the company is my best friend. It's like, hi, are you enjoying the heat? Do you want to get together and have an ice cream? I'm like, not with you, organization. You're not going to show up in my garden. Like, it's just, it feels really fake. And I think and that's part of it, right? That's part of that branding, marketing, sales thing that is really important for a marketing function. Is getting that tone right, is getting that level of intimacy appropriate. And if it's a person, it is innately more intimate than if it is an organization. As an organization, you should have a standpoint. As a person, you have an opinion.
Yeah.
It feels different.
Exactly. Okay, so before I bring us to a bit of a close, and we can, if those of us that are here in the UK can go and melt somewhere, I just wanted to pick up. There was one other question which I think we started to touch on, but I just wondered if maybe Namrata, you had some thoughts on as well, which was how do you measure change within an industry? So that's quite a big question. So for organisations that work on legislation and work on a really broad macro scale to try and make kind of seismic change within an industry, actually on a kind of, you know, pragmatic function, how do you measure that? Are there metrics that you can look at? Are there places you can go that indicate that change? I know we started to touch on it, but I just wondered if you guys had any more thoughts on that. So that was how do you do the growth and word and conversations?
So for me, it's a case of like all big mammoth tasks, right? And we know this like not just in a work way, but in like our personal lives. You break it down into smaller tasks because nothing is going to be a single tipping point. It is very, very, very rare to be like, I'm going to do this one thing and everyone's minds are going to change, right? It's unless you have like an actual disaster, like you have like a Fukushima or Chernobyl or something, that's like, and that's not, you should not be planning that anyway, right? Like that should be unplanned and not horrible. But other than that, everything should be broken down into stages because you want to bring people along for your journey. So at every stage, you should be checking, is this resonating? What is going on? And your metrics should be a mixture. You should be looking to see engagement with whatever the asset is. Is it a LinkedIn post? Is it an event? Is it, you know, a physical coffee table book that you posted to people? You know, call them, find out, did they like it? What did they like? What didn't they like? You get that feedback. And also, by the way, you make it safe for people to tell you they didn't like your stuff. Because most marketeers that I know, you say, I thought that this thing was a problem. And my favorite one is always to talk to people and go, by the way, your panel was old white dudes. You had no people of color and no women whatsoever, or people that I could see of any other genders. And also nobody who was even young. And they get so defensive. They're like, we couldn't find someone. And I was like, hey, it was meant to be helpful. You could take it as criticism and assume your panel was perfect. I would not be doing so, even if I had programmed that panel. You do your best, but then you acknowledge it and you kind of move on. I'm not going to fall down that specific rabbit hole, but you make it safe for people to come to you and say, hey, I think your product could be better like this. I think your narrative could be shaped like that. And that's that iterative learning, that iterative thing. That's what's going to lead you to make that seismic change. And also, ideally, when you're creating that thing and you're breaking it down into points, you should have tipping points. You should have a thing where you go, okay, shall we have an event at the IMO? So like for clients that we've supported, we've literally said to them, when you get to this stage, call us and we will arrange for you to have a drinks reception at the IMO where you're then able to talk to member states about this, because at this stage, it's not mature enough. You're going to go there and over egg the pudding, and people are going to think that you either oversold them something, and the emotional resonance of going, I invested time, money, attention, whatever in your product and it made no sense, is just going to linger even when you fix it. So get it right. Look at your tipping points, look at your ambassadors, look at people you trust. Who do you know who's going to tell you? And then, of course, look at the organizations you should be partnering with. Maritime is so incestuous. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone works collaboratively. It's kind of, it can be terrifying if you're new, but once you're in there, it's beautiful, and people will be generous with their opinions and with their time, and they will tell you if they think you're getting it wrong. If you make it clear that you don't want to know, they won't tell you. They'll be kind in that way and they'll save themselves. But if you genuinely want change, you will get feedback. Just ask.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. And obviously wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't say that is obviously part of what we want to encourage here. This is the safe space. This is the community. If you're a member, you have access to the portal where you can ask each other questions and have those debates and have it in a safe space. If you're lucky enough to actually travel and come to the events, even better, because you can do it with a glass of wine, beer, juice, whatever you drink. But, being together is the most important thing. And I'm going to, we can tell you all about that stuff. I think we've got quite a lot of questions and debates and things that we can continue with this. And like I said, I think roping our lovely panel into a few more kind of workshop style things to get the rest of those questions answered would be great. But if you don't feel like you've had all of your questions answered, I know for all of our panelists have said they're more than happy for you to follow up with them and to ask them those questions. And we will also be taking all of this content and putting it onto the MiM portal. So, the recording, the insights, everything we've extracted from the Q&A, that'll all go in there. If you don't have access to that, we can have a chat and we can tell you why you should be having access to all that. It's already been a busy year, and thank you to all of you and lots of you faces have been up and supported us at all of our events so far. So those of you that were with us in the beginning of the year for our AI one, and those that have been with us in Southampton and Greece, Posidonia, what a week. We're all sort of recovered, those of us that were there.
I realized there's like 2 parties I haven't even posted my photos from. I'm like,
right?
Oh my God.
The recovery is done, but the follow-up is forever, and that's the important stuff, that we're still building these things. But anywho, we will see you all again. We do these sessions quarterly. We'll be building out some of the workshop. Andrew, who did our last AI session, has said that he would be more than happy to run some workshops on that too. So if you're still interested in the AI stuff, maybe it sounds like even Sam might have some stuff to join there. But yes, we are supporting the Merchant Navy Welfare Board with their Seafarer Pledge launch. So we'll be around next week. Can you believe next week is July? We are going to be at SMM. We're going to have our MiM Lounge, so you can come and see us there. We'll have lots of fun activities going on. We'll obviously be hosting one of our receptions so we can get together. And then the next masterclass, we're going to give you a little bit of a breather and wait until September when we're all exhausted from the next load of events. So unless our lovely panelists want to have any final words, I just want to say a huge thank you to you all for taking the time out of your day and joining us. And keep an eye on your inbox and we'll let you know what's coming up next. And if you need anything, here we are. So thank you all for joining.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure being here.
Oh,
thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me for this discussion. It was so fun.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. Perfect. All right, then. Thank you very much, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Perfect.